The notion originated from his attorney, though not for espionage. The term carried implications of scrutiny, and Edward Calloway found no grounds for suspicion toward the woman he'd employed. Fear was his reality, specifically, the helpless anxiety of a father whose daughter, too young to articulate her experiences during his absence, could not share her daily struggles. Managing a transnational enterprise across multiple time zones left no room for pause, no allowance for such vulnerabilities. His daughter Iris, born alongside her twin sister Clara in the pale hours of a March dawn that Edward would never fully reclaim, occupied his thoughts constantly. The birth itself hadn't gone awry. Rather, it revealed an unforeseen magnitude of responsibility he'd never anticipated. Clara achieved walking milestones at 14 months. Iris did not. The pediatric neurologist employed measured language to convey the implications, and Edward remained seated in the examination chair, absorbing each precise explanation while grappling with an inexpressible internal dissonance. Iris exhibited motor development challenges affecting her left side. Walking remained possible, though the timeline proved elusive. Extensive intervention would be necessary. The specialist advocated for a pediatric physical therapist, nurturing home conditions and patient commitment, an active rather than passive form of endurance. Edward employed Adiz Okonkwo as both housekeeper and domestic manager, presenting credentials so comprehensive they approached excess. During their meeting, she had immediately engaged with Iris while seated on the floor, greeting the child before addressing Edward, a detail Edward retained vividly. Adiz commenced duties on a Monday. Camera installation occurred on a Friday 2 weeks hence, presented by counsel as routine for household personnel in properties of this stature. Edward acquiesced reluctantly, recognizing its conventional nature while acknowledging his persistent anxiety and viewing the device as something tangible, even if not quite equivalent to presence. He reviewed recordings in 15-minute intervals late at night following international calls. 3 days elapsed before he witnessed the transformative moment. He anticipated encountering Iris in her floor seat, Clara playing nearby, and Adiz performing her assigned tasks. Instead, he observed Adiz kneeling, not sitting, on the polished hardwood floor of the sunlit entryway, back straight, arms extended toward Iris, who stood confidently in her walker, utilizing it but advancing beyond previous limitations. Gripping the handles with unwavering focus, Adiz communicated through body language alone. Edward couldn't decipher her words through the camera's lens, yet he interpreted her posture perfectly. He perceived her lean forward, absolute concentration, hands open and welcoming, not to arrest a fall but to welcome arrival. The distinction proved profound. Clara positioned herself beside Adiz, clapping spontaneously, not theatrical, but genuine, uninhibited enthusiasm from a 2-year-old unaware of performance expectations. Iris took 3 steps, then 4, then 5, reaching out to grasp Adiz's hands. She was lifted and cradled, eliciting laughter from Iris, laughter Edward had never encountered before, a deep, resonant sound signaling meaningful achievement. Clara continued clapping. Edward remained seated at his desk in a city 3 time zones distant, witnessing his daughter's 5th step, placing his hand over his mouth, motionless for an extended period. He replayed the subsequent day's footage. Adiz occupied the floor again, assuming a different stance, creating slightly greater distance. Her hands remained open, attention unwavering. Iris advanced 6 steps, paused, then persisted. 4 additional steps followed. The next recording revealed 7 steps, then 8, culminating in a sequence of 12 concluding with Iris releasing the walker entirely for 2 seconds, standing unsupported before collapsing gracefully onto the floor, examining her hands as if witnessing something miraculous. Adiz covered her heart with her hand. Clara exchanged toddler-specific communication with Iris. Laughter erupted again. Edward booked the earliest available flight home. Before proceeding, recognized that those who appear unassuming often perform the most vital work. Adwoa Kanadu, age 34, had accumulated 9 years of household management experience since immigrating at 25. holding early childhood education credentials requiring revalidation under local standards. Examinations she pursued incrementally amid full-time employment and limited personal bandwidth. She maintained custody of 3 children aged 8, 6, and 4, who resided with their grandmother during weekdays due to scheduling constraints, reunited weekends with intentional presence born from scarcity. She accepted the Callaway position for adequate compensation, and because she perceived unrecognized potential in the children, a distinction she understood deeply, operating free from condescension. What Edward witnessed through the camera on the 3rd day involved Adiz positioned on the sunlit hardwood floor, not seated but kneeling in her uniform, arms extended toward Iris, who stood confidently in her walker, using it but progressing further than before. Gripping the handles with intense concentration, Adiz communicated through gesture and posture. Edward couldn't capture her spoken words through the camera, yet he interpreted her lean-forward, focused attention and open hands, ready to welcome rather than catch a fall. The contrast was fundamental. Clara stood beside Adiz, clapping authentically, not performed but pure joy from a 2-year-old who hadn't yet mastered discretion. Iris took 3 steps, then 4, then 5, reaching for Adiz's hands. She was lifted and held, prompting laughter from Iris, a deep, resonant sound Edward had never heard, marking a moment worth the daily effort. Clara continued clapping. Edward sat at his desk in a distant city at 11:30, watching his daughter advance 5 steps, covering his mouth, remaining motionless. He reviewed the next day's footage. Adiz was again on the floor, assuming a different starting position, creating slight distance, maintaining open hands and unwavering focus. Iris made 6 steps, paused, then tried again, completing 4 more. The following recording showed 7 steps, then 8, building to a sequence of 12, concluding with Iris releasing the walker entirely for 2 seconds, standing unsupported before settling hard on the floor, examining her hands as if witnessing something extraordinary. Adiz placed her hand over her heart. Clara spoke to Iris in their exclusive toddler dialect. Laughter returned. Edward booked the first available flight home. Before continuing, acknowledge that essential work often remains invisible despite being documented. What Adiz accomplished daily on that floor manifested through surveillance, yet eluded public recognition, the manner in which most significant contributions remain unseen. Kindness Taylor's wishes to illuminate the influences that shaped Adiz's character. A teacher named Mrs. Adami had instructed Adiz at 9 in an overcrowded classroom lacking sufficient resources, staying after school twice weekly to support students requiring individualized attention. Adiz was among them. Mrs. Adami framed this commitment not as exceptional but as routine, Tuesday and Thursday obligations. Adiz pursued teaching as a result, remembering this clarity. A pediatric physiotherapist named Dr. Mensa, working at a clinic near Adiz's childhood neighborhood, permitted her to observe treatment sessions during a school externship, mentoring her as a person to be guided rather than merely managed. Dr. Mensa once remarked mid-session without interrupting her work, "The child always knows more about their capabilities than we do. Our role involves creating conditions and then stepping aside." Adami had recorded these insights, preserving them. A neighbor identified as Ms. Gloria provided childcare during examination periods that couldn't be rescheduled, volunteering 17 times over 3 years without charge, stating only that children required feeding, and she possessed extra provisions. Ms. Gloria rejected notions of sacrifice, viewing her actions as simple obligations, Tuesday and Thursday routines, a pot left on the stove. These individuals shaped Adiz. Their quiet consistency accumulated into her capacity to demonstrate uprightness for others. She never considered herself carrying their legacy. She simply embodied it on that floor daily, doing what had been done for her in unnoticed rooms and unnoticed afternoons. Edward arrived Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock, coinciding with Iris's optimal energy window. The pediatric therapist had advised this timing for peak engagement and minimal frustration. Adiz worked on the floor, unaware of his entrance. He lingered in the doorway, bag still slung over his shoulder, observing. Iris maneuvered her walker while Clara positioned herself nearby, beginning anticipatory clapping. Adi's hands extended openly, golden afternoon light streaming through windows, casting warm patterns across the hardwood. Iris took a step, then another, glancing upward upon spotting her father in the doorway, her expression transforming into one reserved for anticipated connection. She released the walker, maintaining balance for 3 seconds before taking 4 deliberate steps toward him, collapsing into his embrace. He caught her, held her, unable to speak. Adi settled back on her heels, displaying the serene composure of one who recognizes that moments belong to others and finds contentment in that understanding. Clara patted Adi's arm with the tender solidarity characteristic of 2-year-olds assessing emotional climates and responding appropriately. Adi smiled. Edward glanced past Iris's shoulder at her. "How long has she been practicing this?" Adi's replied. "The 5-step milestone occurred on day 3. We've been progressing since." "You didn't inform me. I wanted her to demonstrate it herself." Edward paused. "Why?" Adi's responded. "The first person a child shows achievement to hold significance. She sensed your arrival. Children inherently know." Edward studied his daughter, who nestled against his neck in that transitional state between consciousness and emotional overwhelm. "The camera," he said. Adi's met his gaze. "I viewed the recordings nightly." Silence followed. "I want you to understand that what I observed through that camera prompted my early return and initiated this conversation. I need to ask you directly." Adi's waited. "What do you require? Not regarding employment, but for yourself. The certification process, examinations, weekend childcare. Describe what removing these barriers would look like." She regarded him thoughtfully, having learned to differentiate between performative gestures and authentic offers. She shared her needs. Edward listened completely, giving her his full attention without interruption. "I can assist with most of this," he said, "not to simplify things but to render them achievable. Those are distinct concepts." "I comprehend." Adi's nodded. "I'm confident your daughter will walk independently by summer." "I trust you." Iris had dozed against his chest. Clara had moved to investigate something near the window, demanding her full attention. The late afternoon light filtered gently through the room. The house settled into quietude, as if recognizing that something momentous had transpired, the inhabitants still processing the event. Adi's rose from the floor, smoothed her uniform, and headed toward the kitchen to prepare dinner. She passed Miss Gloria's phone number, affixed to a card on the refrigerator bulletin board, touching it momentarily with one finger, a gesture reserved for essentials. Tuesday, Thursday, a pot left on the stove. The understated labor sustaining existence while unseen, occasionally witnessed, occasionally transformative. Should this narrative resonate with you, express appreciation through engagement, commentary, and sharing with those who might benefit. Subscribe to Kindness Tales for additional narratives celebrating quiet devotion, unexpected mercy, and individuals who consistently demonstrate uprightness without soliciting acknowledgement. Because the world's most vital work frequently unfolds on knees upon hardwood floors, with open palms, and a child taking one additional step beyond the previous day's achievement. Welcome to Kindness Tales. We're delighted you've joined us.